Emily, we know that the president is running this re-election campaign on the strong economy. We hear all the time people say, there's a lot of things I don't like about the president, but the economic picture is good for me. If the economy holds, Sam Zell said it earlier this week, he does not see a recession before 2020. If the economy holds, can that carry President Trump through the election?
It is the thing that Trump is going to run on. Absolutely. We know that he is signaling that. And it gives people who want to support him something to hang their hat on. We heard this in 2016, even people who were rolling their eyes but then holding their nose and voting for him saying, well, he's a businessman. He'll be good for my business. He'll be good for my life.
Were there that many people in 2016 that said that? I mean, Trump's base wasn't saying that. The investor class didn't vote for him.
But we know there are people like that because they swung back to Democrats in 2018 midterms. Look, we talk a lot about people that voted for Trump in 2016 as if that was the only election that happened recently. There were the 2018 midterms where we saw dense populations, particularly in suburbs and exurbs, of people saying, look, this is just not working out. It is not working out for me. Maybe I saw a little bit of bump in the tax break, but I don't like what he's doing overall in the economy, and I don't like what he's doing overall for the country, and so I'm going to vote for the Democrats who are going to hold him accountable. So I do think that those people will still hold. We also know that everything in his economic plan, including the trade war, is really hard on manufacturing states. So if those are the swing states, that's the place he does all of his rallies, you will start to see the bottom fall out a little bit from people saying, look, it's not better for me.
And not to mention farmers, steel and coal. None of those folks have felt any benefit either.
Sure, Michael, you think the president does deserve credit for this economy. What exactly do you believe he deserves credit for? And what if the economy turns? Then where does he go?
I mean, Stephanie, I think, you know, defenders of the president could articulate that the president has prolonged and sustained growth that he arguably received as a result of President Obama's last term. But I think Ron made some very interesting points about a decrease in employment and available jobs. I think our debt to GDP is extremely too high. And I think if that is something that is prolonged going into next year, that may not necessarily mean we'll enter into a recession. But I do think it could mean that you will see the economy slow down. And as we know, consumer confidence is really an emotional thing. It's all about how does the general public feel as they sort of look at these things on the news or read their local newspaper. And I think if people begin to feel that things are changing, if they feel that they don't have the money that they had a year or two before, if they feel that they can't afford the things that they once could, I do think that that is something that could negatively impact the president with two groups, moderate Republicans and GOP-leaning independents who may not necessarily vote for a Democrat, but they could potentially stay home. And I think the president needs those voters in some of those key swing and battleground states.
Austin, if the economy or consumer spending, I should say, is about how people are feeling, consumer spending is good and people feel pretty good. So I get why economists, why people in your shoes read the tea leaves and are concerned. But do you think the average American is that concerned?
Yeah, look, the economy has some parts that are very strong, and it has some parts that are weak. And the strongest thing going has been consumer confidence and consumer spending. Now, it should worry you a little that the University of Michigan consumer confidence numbers just came out, and it was the biggest drop in 6 years. Now, hopefully it was a blip, but there's a little nervousness. And I would just highlight one thing about mechanics of jobs numbers as we go into 2020. It's a census year. And every 10 years, you see a wild run-up of temporary census hiring, which will add literally a couple 100,000 jobs a month for March, April, May of next year. And then going right into the general, through the summer and into the fall, we're going to have negative 100,000 plus jobs a month as those temporary workers lose their jobs for working on the census. So that just mechanics of the census year, I think, could contribute to a lot of pessimism and a hit on consumer confidence as we go right into the election next year.
Ron, we don't know how the upcoming trade talks between the U.S. and China are going to go. But if this administration is able to pull a rabbit out of a hat and get some sort of trade deal done, how much of a massive win is that for the president?
Well, it depends on what's done. If it's a purely cosmetic deal and the president is just getting something done to say that he got something done and we don't deal with intellectual property theft, forced technology transfer, all those things that are really the intractable items between the two countries, then that'll get sussed out pretty quickly.
But hold on.
But
Will it really? Because you know what we've seen the president do? Win on headlines.
Yes.
Win on three-word slogans. So what you're talking about are actual analysts and economists and business people digging through and saying, hold on a second, this was just makeup, right? Think about USMCA. It's NAFTA 2.0. But if you look at how the administration talks about it, you would think they created the world's greatest trade agreement that had nothing to do with the original NAFTA. Please.
Right, and it has virtually no impact on the economy, very small. In fact, Vice President Pence said it will create 176,000 jobs. That's one good month of employment, so the overall deal. To address your point, yes, the headline would be good. What would be better, even in a cosmetic deal, if the tariffs went away? Since global manufacturing is in recession, it's very important that this trade war maybe be fought in a different style that allows the manufacturing side of the global economy to come back and re-strengthen the U.S. as well. We're being constrained by the trade war, and so is the rest of the world.
Sure, Marco, we saw a lot of people vote for Obama in 08, in 12, and then they voted for Trump in 2016. They were sold on this promise that he was going to bring manufacturing jobs back and make America great again for many of those Rust Belt voters who felt forgotten. Here's the thing. He hasn't delivered for many of them. Who he's actually delivered for is the corporate class, the investor class, who didn't vote for him last time around. So that portion of Trump's base that he hasn't delivered for, are they now up for grabs? And is there a Democrat who could take them?
I mean, I would certainly argue so, Stephanie, because those voters that you talk about, I don't think those voters are ardent Trump supporters, right? Because, again, those are people who did vote for President Obama twice. But because of an emotional appeal that Donald Trump was able to make to those voters based on the premise of you expected certain things out of the previous administration, those things weren't delivered on, such as returning those manufacturing jobs. I promise I will deliver on those things. So I think those voters are movable. I think someone like a Joe Biden, who has a history with those type of blue-collar workers, they typically view him positively. I think he's someone who potentially could do well with him. I think even someone like an Elizabeth Warren, who's actually laid out some very interesting and unique policy initiatives directly speaking to some of those voters who I would argue are movable voters, is someone that they may sort of look at as well. But I think, again, going back to something that Emily said, President Trump's biggest thing has been the economy. Every other promise that he's made, he hasn't delivered. He's faltered on every single thing. So if this one single dynamic changes, I do believe his odds of re-election do decrease significantly.
Well, we'll soon find